Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and squirrels from another world. Hope everybody's doing wonderful today, or this evening, I should say. Well, I've had an interesting past couple of days. My internet has gone to absolute garbage, but it appears that it's up and running now. Everything's looking a little bit smooth over here on my side. So, no more lag, but I think we got it all taken care of. Sorry if if you missed me over the past couple of days. It wasn't my intention to bail out on all of you. Hold on just a second. There we go. That looks a little better. A little clearer. Yeah, you see all the tools right there behind me? Yeah, that's from all of the drilling, cutting, running new cables, crap like that I had to do over the past couple of days. Give me just a second and I'll clean all that up. I didn't even notice it until it was there. So give me just a second and you'll see me in just a couple. There we go. That should be better. That should be much better. All right. That looks a little cleaner. Not so crowded up and untidy as it was looking. But it appears that we've got everything back up and running because, man, I was having all kinds of difficulties being able to stream to Rumble tonight. So that's how it goes, I guess. So tonight it's going to be another subject. That subject is, of course, concerning the dangers between dissensions between the states. And then we'll also go into the consequences of that particular part of this here tale. So let me present that crap and we will share that screen up really quick here. And just so you know, I may be over on Winning Realities tonight. So those of you that are coming in, checking it out, just know that I may be over there sometime tonight, hanging out with the Winning Reality. So, well, I was not planning on scrolling it down that far. Silly me. Oh, man. Yeah, it was a busy day. I literally an hour ago, I got my internet back up and running. And of course, something went wonky with the Rumble feed. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Could be because I was supposed to stream last night and I wasn't able to, so I rescheduled it. So sorry about that, Rumble. Maybe if you made your shit a little bit easier to run through, I wouldn't have that kind of problem. Maybe I wouldn't have that issue. So here we go. Let's bring this bad boy up. Good stuff, as you can tell. Hey, Nandor. Oh, I always appreciate it from you. Always appreciate the love. I really do. I'm glad that you get to hang out and enjoy, even if it's for a very short period of time. So this particular one was authored by Hamilton, Alexander Hamilton. It is for those like me that don't know these people personally. So, to the people of the state of New York, the last 3 numbers of this paper have been dedicated to enumerations of dangers to which we should be exposed in a state of disunion from the arms and arts of foreign nations. I shall now proceed to delineate dangers of different and perhaps still more alarming kind those which will, in all probability, flow from dissensions between the states themselves and from domestic factions and convulsions. There have already been some, he's saying these, okay. These have already been in some instances. Damn, if I could learn to read. Slightly anticipated, but they deserve a more particular and more full investigation. A man must be far gone in utopian speculations who cannot seriously doubt that if these states should either be wholly disunited or only united in partial confederacies, the subdivisions into which they might be thrown would have frequent and violent contests with each other. To presume a want of motives for such contests as an argument against their existence would be to forget that men are ambitious, vindictive, rapacious. Rapacious? Okay. To look for a continuation of harmony between a number of independent, unconnected sovereignties in the same neighborhood would be to disregard the uniform course of human events and to set at defiance the accumulated experience of ages. English is hard, even if it is your first language. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. I try sometimes. Sometimes I fail. I'm drinking to hopefully wet my whistle. That's my goal. For whatever reason, the past couple of days I've just been going nonstop working on getting this internet up and running. It was down yesterday, which was wonderful. Like whenever I say down, I had no internet until about 10 o'clock at night. And then I was just so beat. I couldn't stream and I had to get the wireless working up and it was crazy. So, and then today it was just basically on the phone all day while the rest of everything had to be rerouted. It was horrible. Once it was done, going hard on the drinking. I can work on that. I am drinking some bourbon tonight. And then to wet my whistle, I've got this Cooter Brown Ale. Yeah, it's made by Jekyll Brewing in Alpharetta, Georgia. Okay, cool. It's all right. But let me continue on. The causes of hostility among nations are innumerable. There are some which have a general and almost constant operation upon the collective bodies of society. Of this description are the love of power or the desire of preeminence and the dominion, the jealousy of power, which we all know about that. Should have told us you were going live. Well, I'm sorry. That's all good. It's all good, Madcore. Now, if you guys need to pay attention to Madcore's show, because he is going to have a really good conversation with a lovely person that's helping him out with his computer, making sure that bank account card is emptied and nice and clean. It's pretty good. Oh, are you really going to retire, become a full-time alcoholic once your road trip with your grandma is over? I don't know. I think grandma might like a drink too. You always start early. Yeah. Oh, I came over to say hi. Well, I appreciate it, love. I appreciate it. You are a wonderful soul. Wonderful soul. Yes. So, of course, jealousy of power, the desire of equality and safety. There are others which have a more circumcised, circumscribed through all equally operative influences within their spheres. Such are the rivalships and the competitions of commerce between commercial nations, and there are others not less numerous than either of the former, which take their origin entirely in private passions, in the attachments, enmities, interests, hopes, and fears of leading individuals in the communities of which they are members. Men of this class, whether the favorites of a king or of a people, have in too many instances abused the confidence they possessed. And we know about the abuse of confidence lately, and assuming the pretext of some public motive, have not scrupled to sacrifice the national tranquility to personal advantage or personal gratification. Well, there's nothing wrong with a little personal gratification. Cheers to that, ladies and gentlemen. The celebrated Persicles, in compliance with the resentment of a prostitute at the expense of much of the blood and treasure of his countrymen, attacked, vanquished, and destroyed the city of Samnians. Okay. The same man, stimulated by private pique against the Margansians, okay, another nation of Greece, or to avoid a prosecution in which he was threatened as accomplice of a supposed theft of the statutory Phidias, or to get rid of the accusations prepared to be brought against him for dissipating the funds of the state in the purchase of popularity, or from a combination of all these causes, was the primitive author of that famous and fatal war distinguished in the Grecian annals by the name of damn it, I don't know these names, which after various, Jesus Christ, why does Alexander Hamilton have to do this? Just horrible. Intermissions and renewals terminated in the ruin of the Athenian Commonwealth. Okay. I'm so horribly spoken on Greek. My wife, on the other hand, she could probably pronounce every single one of these without fail. The ambitious cardinal, whom was prime minister to Henry the Eighth. Yes, Henry the Eighth permitted his vanity to aspire to the triple crown, entertained hopes of succeeding in the acquisitions of that splendid prize by the influence of Emperor Charles V. To secure the favor and interest of his enterprising and powerful monarch, he prescripted England into a war with France, contrary to the plainest dictates of policy, and at the hazard of the safety and independence, as well as the kingdom over which he presides by his counsels. Think about that again, what he just said. Ambitious cardinal, who was prime minister to Henry VIII, permitted his vanity to aspire to the triple crown, entertaining hopes of succeeding in the acquisition of that splendid prize by the influence of the Emperor Charles V, and in doing so, to secure the favor and interest of his enterprising and powerful monarch, he went to war between England and France. He caused a war between England and France. Although everybody was telling him, don't do this crap, he did it anyway. Sound a little familiar? Sound a little bit like this Ukraine, Russian bull crap. Do not get involved in it. What do? They jump in and get involved. War's bad. The influence which the bigotry of one female, the petulance of another, and the cabals of a third had in the contemporary policy, ferments, and pacifications of a considerable part of Europe, all are topics that have been too often descanted upon, not to be generally known. where, because I didn't know this, to multiply examples of the agency of personal considerations in the production of great national news, either foreign or domestic, according to their direction, would be an unnecessary waste of time. Those who have but a superficial acquaintance with the sources from which they are to be drawn will themselves recollect a variety of instances, and those who have a tolerable knowledge of human nature will not stand in need of such lights to form their opinion, either of the reality or the extent. Jeez. Hamilton, why? Of that agency. Perhaps, however, a reference tending to illustrate the general principle may, with propriety, Jesus Christ, be made to a case which has lately happened among ourselves. This is why so many people have a hard time reading the damn Federalist Papers, is because he could say a lot of these words, just shorten it down just a little bit, just a smidge, make it easier to understand. Put away the thesaurus and try like learning the rest of the English language. The shit that everybody else is saying. God. Where was I at? Sorry. Superficial acquaintance with the source which they be drawn, will themselves recollect reality or extent of that agency. There we go. Perhaps, however, a reference tending to illustrate the general principle may, with propriety, Jesus Christ, be made to a case which has lately happened amongst ourselves. If Shays had not been a desperate debtor, it is much to be doubted whether Massachusetts would have been plunged into a civil war. No. Massachusetts was plunged into a civil war. Okay. But notwithstanding the concurring testimony of experience in this particular, there are still to be found visionary or designing men who stand ready to advocate the paradox of perpetual peace between the states, though dismembered and alienated from each other, the genius of republics, say they, the spirit of commerce has a tendency to soften the manners of men and to extinguish those inflammable humors which have so often kindled into wars. Yeah, you have to read this dramatically to get it right. Commercial republics like ours will never be disposed to waste themselves in ruinous contentions with each other. They will be governed by mutual interest and will cultivate a spirit of mutual amity and concord. Is it not, we may ask these projectors in politics, the true interest of all nations to cultivate the same benevolent and philosophic spirit? Is this to be their true interest? Have they in fact pursued it? Has it not, on the contrary, invariably been found that momentary passions and the immediate interest have a more active and imperious control over human conduct? The general or remote considerations of policy, utility, or justice. Have republics, in practice, been less addicted to war than monarchies? Are not the former administered by men as well as the latter? Are there not aversions, predilections, rivalships, and the desires of unjust acquisitions that affect nations as well as kings? Are not popular assemblies frequently subject to the impulses of rage, resentment, jealousy, avarice, and other irregular and violent propensities? Is it not well known that their determinations are often governed by a few individuals in whom they place confidence and are, of course, liable to be tinctured by the passions and views of those individuals? Has commerce hitherto done anything more than change the objects of war? Is it not the love of wealth of domineering and enterprising a passion as that of power or glory? Have there not been as many wars founded upon commercial motives, since that has become the prevailing systems of nations, as were before occasioned by the cupidity or territory or dominion? Hmm? Has not the spirit of commerce in many instances administered new incentives to the appetite, both for the one and for the other? Let the fallible guide of human opinions be appealed to for an answer to these inquiries. Yes, the only way to read Hamilton is in a very dramatic voice because it is very dramatic. Sparta, Athens, Rome, and Carthage were all republics, two of them, Athens and Carthage, of the commercial kind, yet were they as often engaged in wars, offensive and defensive, as the neighboring monarchs of the same time. Sparta was a little better than a well-regulated camp, and Rome was never satiated of carnage and conquest. 29-minute warning. For what? Carthage, though a commercial republic, was the aggressor in a very war that ended in her destruction. Hannibal had carried her arms into the heart of Italy and to the gates of Rome before Scipio in turn gave him an overthrow in the territories of Carthage and made a conquest of the Commonwealth. Venice in later times figured more than once in wars of ambition till becoming an object to the other Italian states. Pope Julius II found means to accomplish that formidable league, which gave a deadly blow to the power and pride of his haughty republic. The provinces of Holland, till they were overwhelmed in debt and taxes, took a leading and conspicuous part in the wars of Europe. They had furious contests with England for the dominion of the sea, and were among the most persevering and most implacable of the opponents of Louis XV. In the government of Britain, the representatives of the people composed one branch of the national legislature. Commerce has been for ages the predominant pursuit of that country. Few nations, nevertheless, have been more frequently engaged in war. The wars in which that kingdom has been engaged have, in numerous instances, proceeded from the people. Damn. There have been, if I may so express it, well, you're very expressive, Hamilton, almost as many popular as royal wars, the cries of the nation, and the importunities, he says, importunities of their representatives have upon various occasions dragged their monarchs into war, continued them in it, contrary to their inclinations, and sometimes contrary to the real interests of the state, in that memorable struggle for superiority between the rival houses of Austria and Bourbon. Speaking of bourbon, cheers, y'all. Which so long kept Europe in a flame. It is well known that the antipathies of the English against the French, seconding the ambition, or rather the avarice, of a favorite leader, protracted the war beyond the limits marked out by sound policy, and a considerable time in opposition to the views of the court. The wars of these last two mentioned nations have a great measure grown out of commercial considerations, the desire of supplanting and the fear of being supplanted, either in particular branches of traffic or in the general advantages of trade and navigation. From this summary of what has taken place in other countries whose situation have borne the nearest resemblance to our own, what reason can we have to confide in those reveries which would seduce us to an expectation of peace and cordiality between the members of the present Confederacy in a state of separation? Have we not already seen enough of the fallacy and extravagance of those idle theories which have amused us with promises of an exemption from the imperfections, weaknesses, and evils incident to society in every shape? It is not time to awake from the deceitful dream of a golden age and to adopt as a practical maxim for the direction of our political conduct as that we see as well as the other inhabitants of the globe, yet remote from the happy empire of the perfect wisdom and perfect virtue. So let me point to the extreme depression to which our national dignity and credit have sunk. Let the inconveniences felt everywhere from a lax and ill administration of government, let the revolt of a part of the state of the North Carolina, the late menacing disturbances in Pennsylvania, and the actual insurrections and rebellions in Massachusetts declare. So far is the general sense of mankind from corresponding with the tenets of those who endeavor to lull asleep our apprehensions of discord and hostility between nations in the event of disunion, that it has from long observations of the progress of society become a sort of axiom in politics that vicinity or nearness of situation, about the same thing, constitutes nations' natural enemies. An intelligent writer expresses himself on this subject to this effect. Neighboring nations, he says, are natural enemies of each other unless their common weaknesses forces them to league into a confederate republic, and their constitution prevents the differences that neighborhood occasions, extinguishing that secret jealousy which disposes all nations to aggrandize themselves at the expense of their neighbors. This passage at the same time points out the evil and suggests the remedy. Hero. Publius. And of course, this is just giving the quotes back to all of those particular ones. And we go on to the same subject, also written by Mr. Alexander Hamilton. This is in the Federalist number 7. To the people of the state of New York. Oh my gosh, New York, all you people in New York, this is for you, only for you, people in New York. It is sometimes asked with an air of seeming triumph, what inducements could the states have disunited to make war upon each other? It would be a full answer to this question to say precisely the same inducements which have at different times deluged in blood all nations in the world. But unfortunately for us, the question admits of a more particular answer. There are causes of differences within our immediate contemplation of the tendency of which, even under the restraints of a federal constitution, we have had sufficient experience to enable us to form a judgment of which might be expected if those restraints were removed. Remove the restraints. Territorial disputes have at all times been found one of the most fertile sources of hostility among nations in the hostilities. Perhaps the greatest proportion of wars that have desolated the earth have sprung from this origin. This cause would exist among us in full force. We have a vast tract of unsettled territory within the boundaries of the United States. There are discordant and undecided claims between several of them, and the dissolution of the Union would lay a foundation for similar claims between them all. It is well known that they have therefore had serious and animated discussions concerning the rights to the lands which were ungranted at the time of the Revolution, and which usually went under the name of Crown lands. The states within the limits of those colonial governments, they were comprised, have claimed them as their property. The others have contended that the rights of the crown in this article devolved upon the Union, especially as to all that part of the Western territory, which either by actual possession or through the submission of the Indian proprietors was subjected to the jurisdiction of the King of Great Britain till it was relinquished in the Treaty of Peace. This, it has been said, was all the events and acquisition to the Confederacy by compact with the foreign power. It has been the prudent policy of Congress to appease this controversy by prevailing upon the states to make cessions to the United States for the benefit of the whole. It has been so far accomplished as under a continuation of the Union to afford a decided prospect of an amicable termination of the dispute. A dismemberment of the Confederacy, however, would revive this dispute and would create others on the same subject. At present, a large part of the vacant Western territory is by cession, at least, if not by an anterior right, the common property of the Union. So imagine that. They're looking at these states over on the backside of the West Coast, the western part of the United States, and they're already laying claim to it. Imagine that. And this is years before we have a civil war. It's a deep consideration. See, I'm going to have to take and upload this thing over onto Rumble just so everybody can see it over there also. If that were an end, the states which made the cession on principle of federal compromise would be apt, when the motive of the grant had ceased, to reclaim the lands as a reversion. The other states would no doubt insist on a proportion by the right of representation. Their argument would be that a grant once made could not be revoked, and that the justice of participating in territory acquired or secured by the joint efforts of the Confederacy remained undiminished. If contrary to probability that it should be admitted by all the states that each had a right to share of this common stock, there would be a difficulty to be surmounted as to a proper rule of apportionment. Different principles would be set up by different states for this purpose, and as they would affect the opposite interests of the parties, they may not easily be susceptible of a pacific adjustment. Sorry, I'm skipping. In the wild field of the Western territory, therefore, we perceive an ample theater for hostile pretensions without an umpire or a common judge to interpose between the contending parties, to reason from the past to the future. We have a good ground to apprehend that the sword would sometimes be appealed to as the arbiter of their differences. The circumstances of the dispute between Connecticut and Pennsylvania respecting the land at Wyoming admonish us not to be sanguine in expecting as easy accommodations of such differences. The Articles of Confederation obliged the parties to submit the matter to the decision of a federal court. The submission was made and the court decided in favor of Pennsylvania, but Connecticut gave strong indications of dissatisfaction with that determination, nor did she appear to be entirely resigned to it till, by negotiation and management, something like an equivalent was found for the loss she supposed herself to have sustained. Nothing here said is intended to convey the slightest censure on the conduct of that state. She no doubt sincerely believed herself to have been injured by the decision, and states, like individuals, acquiesce with great reluctance in determinations to their disadvantage. Those who had an opportunity of seeing the inside of the transactions which attended the progress of the controversy between this state and the District of Vermont can vouch the opposition we experienced, as well as from states not interested as from those which were interested in the claim, and can attest to the danger to which the peace of the Confederacy might have been exposed had this state attempted to assert its rights by force. By force, I tell you. Don't use the force. Two motives preponderated in that opposition. One, a jealousy entertained of our future power, and the other, the interest of a certain individuals of influence in the neighboring states, little haughty-taughty bastard, who had obtained grants of land under the actual government of that district. Even the states which brought forward claims in contradictions to ours seems more solicitous to dismember this state than to establish their own pretensions. These were New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. Bastards. New Jersey and Rhode Island, upon all occasions, discovered a warm zeal. Oh, they discovered it warm, and it was zealous for the independence of Vermont and Maryland, till, alarmed by the appearance of a connection between Canada and the state, entered deeply, oh, so deeply, into the same views. These, being small states, saw an unfriendly eye with the perspective of our growing, oh, it was growing, greatness, oh, it was so great. In review of these transactions, we may trance some of these causes which would be likely to embroil the states with each other, if it should be their unpropitious destiny to become disunited. Proprietus, I don't know. The competitions of commerce would be another fruitful source of contention. The states less favorably circumstanced would be desirous of escaping from the disadvantages of local situation and of sharing in the advantages of their more fortunate neighbors. Each state or separate confederacy would pursue a system of commercial policy peculiar to itself. This would occasion distinctions, preferences, and exclusions which would beget discontent. The habits of intercourse on the basis of equal privileges, to which we have been accustomed since the earliest settlement of the country, would give a keener edge to those causes of discontent than they would naturally have independent of this circumstance. We should be ready to denominate injuries those things which were in reality the justifiable acts of independent sovereignties consulting a distinct interest. The spirit of enterprise which characterizes the commercial part of America has left no occasion of displaying itself unimproved. It is not all probable that this unbridled spirit would pay much respect to those regulations of trade by which particular states might endeavor to secure exclusive benefits to their own citizens. The infractions of these regulations on one side and efforts to prevent and repel them on the other would naturally lead to outrages, and these to reprisals and to wars. Oh, reprisal. Sorry. That's one shot down. Or a shot and a half. I think it's like 2 ounces or something like that. I think a shot is 1.5, so I'm drinking about 3 ounces for every 2 shots that I do. And the beer is just keeping my throat lubricated. Mm-hmm. The opportunities which some states would have rendering other tributaries to them by commercial regulations would be impatiently submitted by the tributary states. The relative situation of New York, Connecticut, and the New Jersey would afford an example of this kind. New York, from the necessities of revenue, must lay duties on her importations. Now, if you understand what they mean by that, it means that they actually would have to cause monies to be paid for anything being imported, and they would have to basically have a duty tax on everything coming in. That's what he means by those duties. To lay duties, he doesn't mean it like duty, like don't take a dump. That would be bad. I tend to floss something. My mind, maybe. I don't know. Where was I? The duties. Duties must be paid by the inhabitants of the 2 other states in the capacity of consumers of what we import. New York would neither be willing nor able to forego this advantage. Her citizens would not consent that a duty paid by them should be remitted in favor of the citizens or of her neighbors. Nor would it be practicable if there were not this impediment in the way. To distinguish the customers in our own markets, would Connecticut and New Jersey long submit to be taxed by New York for exclusive benefit? Should we be long permitted to remain in the quiet and undisturbed enjoyment of a metropolis from the possession of which we derived an advantage so odious to our neighbors, and their opinions so oppressive? Should we be able to preserve it against the incumbent weight of Connecticut on one side and the cooperating pressure of New Jersey on the other? These are questions that Temetry alone will answer in the affirmative. The public debt of the Union would be a further cause of collision between the separate states or confederacies. The appointment in the first instance and the progressive extinguishment afterward would be alike productive of ill humor and animosity. How would it be possible to agree upon a rule of opportunity? Jesus Christ, use some real words. Apportionment. There you go. Apportionment satisfactory to all. There is scarcely any that can be proposed which is entirely free from real objections. These, as usual, would be exaggerated by the adverse interests of the parties. There are even dissimilar views among the states as to the general principle of discharging the public debt. Some of them either less impressed with the importance of a national credit or because their citizens have little, if any, immediate interest in the question, feel an indifference, if not a repugnance, to the payment of the domestic debt. At any rate, these would be inclined to magnify the difficulties of a distribution. Others of them, a numerous body of those citizens, are creditors to the public beyond proportion of the state in the total amount of the national debt, would be strenuous for some equitable and effective provision. The procrastinations of the former would excite the resentments of the latter. The settlement of a rule would in the meantime be postponed by the real differences of opinion and affected delays. The citizens of the states interested would clamor. Foreign powers would urge for the satisfaction of their just demands, and the peace of the states would be hazarded to the double contingency of external invasions and internal contention. This is where he's getting at on it, is to keep us free from people wanting to jump in and beat little assholes to the United States. He's basically calling out, China, you'll be asshole. Could be, might be. Suppose the difficulties of agreeing upon a rule surmounted, and the apportionment made. Still, there is a great room to suppose that the rule agreed upon would, upon experiment, be found to bear harder upon some states than upon others. Those which were sufferers by it would naturally seek for a mitigation of the burden. The others would as naturally be disinclined to a revision which was likely to end in an increase of their own encumbrances. The refusal would be too plausible a pretext to the complaining states to withhold their contributions, not to be embraced with avidity, and not the compliance of these states with their engagements would be a ground of bitter discussion and altercation, even if the rule adopted should in practice justify the equality of its principle. The delinquencies in payments on the part of some states would result in a diversity of other causes, the real deficiencies of resources, the mismanagement of their finances, accidental disorders in the management of the government, and in addition to the rest, the reluctance of which men commonly part with their money for purposes that have outlived the exigencies of which produce them, and interfere with the supply of immediate wants. Delinquencies from whatever causes would be productive of complaints, recriminations, and quarrels. There is perhaps nothing more likely to disturb the tranquillity of nations than their being bound to mutual contributions for any common object that does not yield an equal and coincident benefit. How about you just say equal benefit? For it is an observation as true as it is trite that there is nothing men defer so readily about as the payment of money. That's right, bitch, gonna get paid. Laws in violation of private contracts as they amount to aggressions on the rights of those states whose citizens are injured by them may be considered as another probable source of hostility. They are not authorized to expect that a more liberal or more equitable spirit should preside over the legislations of the individual states hereafter. It is unrestrained by any additional checks than we have hereto seen in too many instances, disgracing their several codes. We have observed the disposition to retaliation excited in Connecticut in consequence of the enormities perpetuated by the league, the legislature, the legislature, the legislature of Rhode Island, and we reasonably infer that in similar cases, under other circumstances, a war not of parchment, but of the sword would chastise such atrocious breaches of moral obligation and social justice. He's already calling out these social justice warriors even before they got started. The probability of incompatible alliances between the different states or confederacies in different foreign nations and the effects of this situation upon the peace of the whole have been sufficiently unfolded in some preceding papers. From the view they have exhibited of the part of this subject, this conclusion is to be drawn that America, if not connected at all or only by a feeble tie of simple league, offensive and defensive, would, by the operation of such jarring alliances, be gradually entangled in all the pernicious labyrinths of European politics and war, and by the destructive contentions of the parts into which she was divided, would be likely to become a prey to artifices and basically, they're going to come fuck us up. Of powers equally to the enemies of them all, divide et impera, must be the motto of every nation that either hates or Furious. Oh, by the way, what are you saying is divide, command. And there are consequences to all of this BS. And of course, it's written by Hamilton, so it's actually extra wordy. So we will go over the consequences on another stream. I wanted to make this one short and sweet, to the point, and of course, say thank you very much. Every single one of you that's come in, hit that like and subscribe. You've given me the thumbs up. It's awesome. You guys are so great. It is really a blessing to have each and every single one of you here. I am just amazed how much fun this stuff is. The interaction that I get from my chat, the interaction I get from other people outside of my chat that like to, give me a hard time and talk shit, crap like that. It's good. I enjoy it. I really do. I really, really enjoy that all of you people come in here, give me a hard time, and have fun. I really enjoy it. But with all that being said, all of the BS that I've said over the past, 53 minutes, 49 seconds, I'm going to cut this one short. I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm still alive, still thinking about you, still going to do some content for you. I've got other stuff that's coming up. Next week is probably going to be a pretty short week. I may just do 2 streams next week. I'll try to get as much knocked out this weekend as I can, just to sort of give an update on where I'm going to be, what I'm going to be doing. I've never tried doing streams from another country. I have to be careful of what my data is going to be. It's got to be on their Wi-Fi. Hopefully they have good speed there. If they don't, then I'm just going to be recording stuff and uploading it whenever I can. And I may just do a breakdown whenever I get back from Italy, and just do it as a 10-part series or something. It'll be good. But all that being said, let me see. I think somebody sent me a wonderful thing. Yes, they did. It looks like, and I'll give a share here. Let's see, copy this link, and this is where I'm going to be here. Paste that in. Boom. That is where I am going to be tonight. And of course, pin the message up there. So check that pin message out. Whenever this ends, I will be going over there. I'll be jumping in a little bit early. It is looking wonderful. It looks like Repairing History, the Origins of Black American Culture. And you would never believe who this wonderful person is that's putting this particular thing out. The Origins of Black American Culture. Who else could ever do it any better but Thomas Sowell? So Winning's going to be doing this tonight. It's going to be wonderful. Hope to catch you all there. And I want each and every one of you to jump in there, give a like and a thumbs up to our man Winning over there. He is doing quite a bit of really interesting stuff, and he likes to keep it beautiful. He likes to keep it wonderful. Make sure on your way out of here you hit that like. You make sure that you're still subscribed to me. And I just want to say thank you, every single one of you. This has actually been a really good journey. It's quite enjoyable. I enjoy doing these kind of things where I can talk dramatically, say things quite horrible, but do it in a gentlemanly manner. With all that being said, I'm going to jump out of here. thank all of you for coming in. Make sure that you hit the like and subscribe, and I will see you guys probably this weekend. I should release some cool stuff this weekend. In between packing for Italy, there's a lot of paperwork that needs to be filled out, dumped out, and sent to clients and all that kind of stuff. And because my internet's been down for the past couple of days, I haven't done any work. But that's not your problem. All you need to do is just hit that like, subscribe, enjoy the content, and catch us on the other side of every good day. Thank all of you, and have a good evening. Peace.